जय गोपीजन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन व्रज जन रंजन यशोदानंदन व्रज जन रंजन यमुना तीरा वनचारी यमुना तीरा वनचारी जय राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी जय गोपीजन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी जय गोपीजन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन व्रज जन रंजन यशोदानंदन व्रज जन रंजन यमुना तीरा वनचारी यमुना तीरा वनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा शील प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा शील प्रभुपदा जय विष्णुपाद परमहंस प्रवचक सदस्य श्रीमद ISKCON भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। जय विष्णुपाद परमहंस प्रवचक सदस्य श्रीमद भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी महाराज प्रभुपाद की जय। जय विष्णुपाद श्री लकुर किशोर दास महाराज की जय। जय विष्णुपाद सच्चिदानंद श्री भक्ति विनोद ठाकुर की जय। जय विष्णुपाद वैष्णव सार्वभौम श्री जगन्नाथ दास महाराज की जय। जय श्री रूप सनातन भट्ट रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल भट्टदास श्री गोस्वामी प्रभु की जय। नमोचर्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से गो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवसादि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोपिनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गोवर्धन की जय। श्री श्री गौरांगी बैंगलोर ईश्वर भगवान की जय। श्री मायापुर धाम की जय। श्री वृंदावन धाम की जय। अंगमई की जय, यमुनमई की जय, भक्ति देवी की जय, तुलसी देवी की जय, अनंत कोटि वैष्णववृंद की जय, श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय, ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, इस्कॉन वर्तमान गुरुवृंद की जय, समावेद भक्तिवृंद की जय, गौर प्रेमानंद Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled. All glories to the assembled. All glories to the assembled. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Shri Bhagavad Gita. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam. Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jehmudire. Nashtaprayeshu Apatreshu Nityam Bhagavate Sevaya. Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtihi. Hare Krishna, welcome to the Friday morning Srimad Bhagavatam class. We are today discussing from Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 4, text 9, sloka 34 and 35, chapter entitled Dhruva Maharaj returns home. First I read text 34. Maya tat prarthitam vyartham chikitseva gatayushi prasadya jagadatmanam tapasa prasadanam bhavachidam ayacheham bhavam bhagya vivarchitaha. Translation Srila Prabhupada teacher. It is very difficult to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but in my case, although I have satisfied the super soul of the whole universe, I have prayed only for useless things. My activities were exactly like treatment given to a person who is already dead. Just see how unfortunate I am, and for in spite of meeting the Supreme Lord, who can cut one's links with birth and death, I have prayed for the same conditions again. Sometimes it so happens that a devotee engaged in the loving service of the Lord desires some material benefit in exchange for this service. This is not the proper way to discharge the devotion service. Out of ignorance, of course, sometimes a devotee does so, but Dhruva Maharaj regrets his personal behavior in this connection. Text number 35. Swarajyam yachato maudhyan mano me bikshito bata ishvarat क्षीणपुण्येन फलिकारान इवादनः. Translation Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Because of my state of complete foolishness and paucity of pious activities, although the Lord offered me his personal service, I wanted material name, fame, and prosperity. My case is just like that of the poor man who, when he satisfied a great emperor who wanted to give him anything he might ask, out of ignorance, asked only a few broken grains of husk rice. In this verse, the word Swarajyam, which means complete independence, is very significant. A conditioned soul does not know what complete independence is. Complete independence means situation in one's own constitutional position. The real independence of a living entity, who is part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is to remain always dependent on the Supreme Lord, just like a child who plays uh, in complete independence, guided by his parents who watch over him. The independence of the conditioned soul does not mean to fight with the obstacles offered by Maya, but to surrender to Krishna. In the material world, everyone is trying to become completely independent simply by fighting against the obstacles offered by Maya. This is called the struggle for existence. Real independence is to be reinstated in the service of the Lord. Anyone who goes to the Vaikuntha planets or Goloka Vrindavan planet is freely offering his service to the Lord. That is complete independence. Just contrary to this is material overlordship, which we wrongly take to be independence. Many great political leaders have tried to establish independence, but due to such so-called independence, the people's dependence has only increased. The living entity cannot be happy trying to be independent in the material world. One has to surrender, therefore, unto the lotus feet of the Lord and engage in his original eternal service. Dhruva Maharaj regrets that he wanted material opulence and greater prosperity than that of his great grandfather, Lord Brahma. His begging from the Lord was like a poor man's asking a great emperor for a few grains of broken rice. The conclusion is that anyone who is engaged in the loving service of the Lord should never ask for material prosperity from the Lord. The awarding of material prosperity simply depends on the stringent rules and regulations of the external energy. Pure devotees ask the Lord only for the privilege of serving Him. This is our real independence. If we want anything else, it is a sign of our misfortune. ओम अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुर्मिलितमेन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्ण चैतन्य देवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त राधाकान्त नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुस्ते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये पांचकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवसादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। मोहम करुदे वाचन पुल्कम लंगे देवं कृपाते श्री गुरुम दिनतारं मानव श्री चैतन्य ईश्वर। Hare Krishna. So here we see that Dhruva Maharaj is offering his prayers to the Supreme Lord, expressing his regret for asking material benedictions when he saw the Lord in face to face, right in front of him. When the Lord wanted to, uh, could have engaged him in personal service, but instead Dhruva Maharaj wanted to ask for material benedictions. And from these two verses, we'll see what is the importance of material benedictions. In the first verse, he says that it is very difficult to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But in my case, although I have satisfied the super soul of the whole universe, I have prayed only for useless things. My activities were exactly like treatment given to a person who is already dead. So, this is the first part of the translation given by Srila Prabhupada. So, it is not very easy to satisfy the Supreme Lord. At the same time, it is possible also because by constitution we are meant to be servants of the Lord, but because we have ignored that uh, position of ours, uh, it is difficult to please the Lord immediately. But we must understand what is the process of pleasing the Lord and take that step forward and apply it in our life. Many times people might hear also, but when it comes to application, they may not be applying it and they may feel that they are not getting the results. So sometimes the application may be wrong. So there can be many reasons. For all these things, one should have a guru and both Diksha Guru as well as a Shiksha Guru who can guide the living entity through. So that's why it is mentioned that it is very difficult to satisfy the personality of Godhead. There is also mention that though Dhruva Maharaj tried to satisfy the super soul of the universe, he has prayed for useless things. So, super soul, when he addresses the Lord as the super soul of the universe, the Lord is also present in all the universes in the form of Garbhodaka Sai Vishnu. That is the reason that the universes are activated, just like uh, when the soul is present in our body, the body is active. Similarly, the Lord is present in all the universes as the super soul of the universe, that is Garbhodaka Sai Vishnu. So he says that although he satisfied the super soul of the whole universe, but still he has prayed only for useless things. And he gives a comparison. My activities were exactly like treatment given to a person who is already dead. See, we can't do anything to a dead person. So anything that you do to a dead person is literal waste. So that is why he compares asking for a benediction. Material benediction is like giving treatment to a dead man. And he repents, actually. He says that how unfortunate I am that in spite of meeting the Supreme Lord, uh, who can hear the word Bhavachidda is mentioned. The one thing is that the Lord can deliver. Bhavachidda means the Lord can deliver the living entities from the cycle of birth and death. which is what our desire should be. But by asking for material benedictions, what happens is that one has to be live in this material world to continue to enjoy the material desires which we are asking from the Lord. Lord does not say no, but material benediction means continuing our cycle of birth and death. That's what he addresses the Lord as Bhavachiddam. Now, if the Lord gives material benedictions, it is not necessary that you may be able to enjoy in this life. The Lord will provide a facility for you, maybe in this birth, maybe after one birth, after 10 birth, we don't know when. So, asking for a material benediction to enjoy means you want to stay here to enjoy these things. You want to be in the cycle of birth and death. Whereas if you request the Lord to give an opportunity to render service to Him, then the Lord purifies us of our illusory energy by which one can practice pure devotion service, and then He can free us from the cycle of birth and death. Now we go to text number 35. Here, Dhruva prays, because of my state of complete foolishness and paucity of pious activities, although the Lord offered me his personal service, I wanted material name, fame, and prosperity. So Dhruva Maharaj actually, before meeting the Lord, he had a desire for material name, fame, and prosperity. So the Lord offered him personal service, but still he feels that he was foolish enough. At the same time, whatever pious activities that he was performing, uh, that has come to a stop, and that is the reason that the Lord offered him personal service, but he wanted name, fame, and prosperity. Then he says, my case is just like that of a poor man who, when he satisfied a great emperor, who wanted to give him anything he might ask, out of ignorance, asked only a few broken grains of husked rice. So here he compares himself to a very poor person. When a poor person goes to a very rich, wealthy man, he can ask for food, shelter, or clothing, whatever it is, basic necessities also, which a great person will not refuse to give if he has pleased him. So here Dhruva Maharaj feels that though he satisfied the Lord, who could have wanted to give him anything he might have asked, but out of ignorance he asked a few grains of broken rice. So that is the condition of a person asking for material benediction. We'll understand a few important points here. It is said that Swarajyam, which means complete independence, we can't become completely independent because we are not the Lord. The only one personality who is completely independent is the Lord. That is why he's called Swarat. Swarat means the Lord is independent on his own. He does not depend on any of the living entities. But we as living entities, either as living entities or as a society or as a nation, we are completely dependent on others. We cannot say we can, at any point of time, we will become independent. So therefore, it is said that the real independence of a living entity is that the living entities are being a part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, are to be in its constitutional position, that is, render service to the Lord. But at the moment, what we ask is that it's like Srila Prabhupada gives a comparison like a child. A child actually thinks that he's independent, but what happens is that he's always guided by his parents. So he who watch over the child. So like that, we are all just innocent children who think we are independent, but we can never be independent. Our this thing is to be dependent on Krishna. When we depend on Krishna, then we really become independent because what we need, the Lord is already providing. It is not that Lord is not providing anything to any living entity. So Prabhupada gives an example of even an elephant who eats about 40 kgs of food every day, and the Lord provides food to him also. The Lord provides shelter to him also. But then why not living entities like us, as we are all his children as much as any other souls? So, the independence of the conditioned soul does not mean to fight with the obstacles offered by Maya, but to surrender Krishna. So the real independence for us comes when we surrender to Krishna. And at that time, what happens is that we become independent of Maya. Whereas now we are become by asking for independence, we are depending on Maya. So either we have to surrender to Krishna or we have to surrender to Maya. That we have to choose. That much of freedom the Lord has given, because as living entities, the Lord gives that minute independence also, but there is a tendency for us to misuse it. So real independence is to be reinstated in the service of the Lord, which we have ignored. And by doing rendering devotional service, anyone who goes to even the Goloka spiritual planets like Vaikuntha or Goloka Vrindavana, they are freely offering service to the Lord. Now, here, if you want to buy a product, you have to pay a price for it. You don't get anything free. Anything that you want, you pay a price either directly or indirectly. Nothing comes to us for free. So we cannot say that I'm independent. But on the contrary, we think that we want to lord over everything that is there in the material nature, considering that to be independence. Examples are given how many great political leaders have tried to establish independence, but due to such so-called independence, the people's dependence has only increased. So the point is that if you see the examples of even politicians in our country like Mahatma Gandhi, Indira Gandhi and all, they all try to declare independence from others. But if you see, even today, after so many years of independence, we are not completely independent. We are depending on somebody or the other for something or the other. We are always dependent. In fact, it is said that at one point of time, our country was full of agricultural produce. But today we have reached a situation where we are importing even uh, basic food items from other countries. Not only us, you see anybody, any country. I was reading an article yesterday or day before yesterday where it is said when the president of America was to take up his new role as a president, many Indians who are staying in that country, their wives may be pregnant. Now, pregnancy, as you all know, a child is delivered just when it is 9 months, maybe plus minus a few days. So there was mentioned that those who are just at the 36 months or 37 months of pregnancy, they want to see that the child is delivered either by cesarean section or whatever it is by artificial means, just to see that the child takes birth in America to get the citizenship of America, which is going to be stopped by the new coming president. That means at any cost, the article mentioned that they are prepared to risk their life, they are prepared to risk the child's life just to get the citizenship of uh, American country. So we one, and it is said that the doctors also warned these citizens of trying to take these practices because it is harmful as per medical science. But still, the point is that they want to take citizenship at any cost, even if it's a question of their own life. So that is what is called lording over the material nature. Another example I can give is that I attended one of the ceremonies of one of the souls who departed within close this thing of the family. So the person who left the body, actually the whole family was working in Dubai, and they have made they struggled all through their life, but and made a lot of money that can come in handy for generations. So they built a very palatial house in a very posh locality in Bangalore, and finally one of them left the body. And they were planning to come and settle down in India in about 3 months' time. So I was suggesting there was no need to struggle because if you have had enough money, what is the point of working? So I've been suggesting for quite some number of years, but they never listened. So one of them left the body, and the funeral ceremony and all the other post rituals were taking place from the new house which they built for them to live. The point is that the whole life they have struggled to make that money, but not one moment they could stay in that house. Rather, when the person left the body, they have to leave the body in that house. So this is what is called trying to lord over the material nature. We want to extract as much as possible, as much as possible, as much as possible, because we have many desires. And the more desires you have, the more you have to work to achieve these desires. And it's not that you become qualified for that also. Sometimes the Lord gives benedictions, but we tend to misuse it, and that is our dependency on Maya. So Dhruva Maharaj regrets that he wanted material opulence and greater prosperity even than that of his great grandfather, Lord Brahma. So he compares that his begging from the Lord was like a poor man's asking a great emperor for a few grains of broken rice. So the rich person can give anything, but he was asking for a few grains of broken rice. The conclusion is that anyone who is engaged in the loving service of the Lord should never ask for material prosperity from the Lord. Now, these material benedictions comes at the cost of stringent rules and regulations of the external energy, that is Maya, which is what I gave two personal examples of how you might ask for material benedictions, but you may not be even in a position to enjoy those material benedictions. So, pure devotees of the Lord, they ask only for the Lord to engage Him in serving Him. That is our real independence. If we want anything else, this is a question of our misfortune. So material opulence means I want to be here for enjoying. That is I want to be here in this material world. So that is I'm depriving myself of the good fortune that the Lord has given me. So it is mentioned that sometimes it so happened that a devotee engaged in devotional service might look for name, fame, and reputation and followers, which we call in Hindi puja, la pratishtha, etc., in the course of discharging this devotional service. But that is not real devotional service, because if one is not qualified enough to get this puja, pratishtha, labh in the process of devotional service, the Lord will not give that. The Lord knows every living entity what is suitable for him. Sometimes, if the Lord feels that the devotee will use everything in the service of the Lord will give him even this puja pratishtha labh, but provided the devotee does not get carried away with it. But generally, what happens is that once we take up a position of responsibility, we are overcome with the desire for that same puja pratishtha labh, and that keeps us bound. And at some point of time, we feel that if I'm losing that puja pratishtha labh, I'll be losing my devotional service also. So many times the Lord does not give these puja pratishtha labh to devotees where he feels that the devotee might misuse it. So one has to be very, very careful that they should not aspire for these material benedictions even in exchange for devotional service. So, out of ignorance, uh, sometimes a devotee might do so. But then these lessons that are given in Srimad Bhagavatam, like Dhruva Maharaj's example, is given so that we also have that repentance that I should not ask for this. And the Lord who is seated as Paramatma in our heart, He knows whether we are really feeling repentant or it is just a duplicity. Many times, after hearing Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, etc., we might feel that I must also feel repentant about it. But one must know whether he is really regretting from his heart or it's an artificial expression of that regret. But then one point is that regretting is one of the important vital aspects in the path of devotional service. And the Lord sometimes, not sometimes, the Lord becomes pleased if one regrets naturally, not with duplicity. So Prahlad Maharaj feels repentance truly, and he feels that he got a fortunate spiritual master like Narad Muni. Narad Muni is an exalted spiritual master, and so similarly, once we get initiated to a good spiritual master, we should try to understand that we should not. Many times, devotees meet their spiritual master, saying that please give me a blessing so that my son may come first in the examination, or please bless me so that my husband gets a good job, or my wife gets a good family, and all those things, good family for marriage. These are all things that one should not ask for from a spiritual master. That is what is called depending on Maya. Pure devotee is independent of the material world, but they are dependent on Krishna. That is what we should aspire for. Uh, the actual free become independence is becoming free from death and birth and death, and becoming free to serve Krishna. That is the real independence. But what happens is that we try to take shelter of Maya and become entangled in the cycle of birth and death, because you have to come to take birth again if you want to enjoy material world. So material misery is not the real misery. That means if we are deprived of a particular material situation, one must understand that the Lord has given this particular situation to that particular devotee, considering his nature. Everybody is entangled in the three modes of material nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. So if somebody in the mode of ignorance think that I have, if I have this, I'll be able to serve Krishna better, that is foolishness. Many times devotees also take a promise that I will give 10% of my income to you, and the remaining 90% is mine for me to exploit. So there are devotees who are very, very well off, and they feel reluctant to give something in charity, even to the Lord, when the Lord has provided them. So they may give that 10%, but in return of that 10%, they have a lot of expectations. That is why they have these reservations. So if you see earlier, during the Goswami's time and all, they used to say that one should give 50%. Then it came to 25%. But now they are insisting at least if one who can afford to try to give at least 10% of his income to the temple. Because temple runs in charity. Temple doesn't have any income mode of source of income. So when grihasthas donate to the temple, temple can be run easily. Also, that grihasthas are supposed to uh, give charity to the other three ashramas, that is brahmachari, vanaprastha, and sannyasi, because they don't have any source of income. So that is the responsibility of every grihastha in the moment. If you look at uh, many other Western countries or European countries, they have freedom for purchasing guns. So more guns are available in the market, which they can purchase, like purchasing grains or whatever it may be. So what is the result is that there is more killings in those countries. So how can we say that we have become independent and bought a gun or something like that? So earlier, if we see that ours as a country was focusing more on food grains and other things, but now we are interested in making factories which can produce cars and phones, etc. So can we say that we have become free from the car or phone? Today, even if we can walk for 10, say 50 meters, people are reluctant to walk because they think that I have a car, why should I walk? And also, if you see that people are more addicted to the phone than anything else, that phone has become a second partner in their life. So this is how we thought that we will be independent of this, but we have made this as a bondage in us. So that is our mindset. It's not our true this thing situation. So real independence means to be situated in the service of the Lord. That is our constitutional position. And independence from Krishna. So if we want to become independent of Krishna, then we will have to become dependent on Maya. And Maya will give lot of opportunities so that we can serve her. So materialists normally try to get as much as possible, which is compared like a stool. In fact, there was a quote from some sannyasis that even my spiritual master, Solna Jayapatak Swami Maharaj, gave a quote sometime that if we are trying to do service, and try to have expect some material benedictions, material opulence, that it is like eating the stool just like a pig. So from this strong example, we should understand that we should not look for material benedictions. Rather, try to see how we can get free from Maya. So the Lord himself states in Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, Devi Isha Gunamai Mama Maya Dhuratyaya, saying that this material called Maya is very difficult to overcome. It's not very easy. But to one who has surrendered, it is possible for him to cross over this ocean of Maya. So ultimate thing is that one must try to surrender to Krishna, which is not an any easy process also. But nevertheless, one should try to start the process so that at some point of time, the Lord seated as Paramatma can give that living entity the process to surrender himself one. Ultimately, if we have to become independent of this Maya, we have to surrender to Krishna. It is not possible to depend both on Krishna and Maya. It is just like you are trying to look for two sides of a coin at the same time. It doesn't happen. We have to choose the best of the one, which is surrendering to Krishna. So by surrendering to Krishna, one actually becomes independent. Now, this minute independence is given by the Lord, so that we can use it in the right spirit and ask for this uh, uh, um, benediction that we may be always engaged in his service. But unfortunately, the modern education is so created that right from the time that a child takes birth, all the way up to the time one leaves his body, the educational system, the society, everything is so well designed, including the clubs and social organizations, that uh, somehow they promote trying to ask to achieve material opulence only, but none of them give the real spiritual wealth that is serving the Lord. There's an example given during Srila Prabhupada's time, that when he was in New York, at that time there were many, many Western preachers, like we have preachers who are preaching the Krishna consciousness. So during his time also, there were many, many Western preachers, and they all, Srila Prabhupada asked them, what do you pray? So some said they pray for some wealth, some said that they wealth pray for their prosperity. And then it all came to a situation where they asked Srila Prabhupada, what do you pray for? So Srila Prabhupada replied that I am praying for Krishna's love. So this is how Srila Prabhupada's understanding of the situation was. On the other hand, if you see most of the other religions, they don't uh, define what is the condition of a living entity. Like they say that one must be fearful of God, that we may have to be in hell, we have to suffer, and so many things. But Srila Prabhupada gave us the opportunity to understand we should not be God fearing, but rather we should love God. That should be our motive. Another important point is that the three modes of material nature are such that it is not very easy to overcome. So, depending upon what is the mode that one is associated with, we are dependent on these three modes of material nature which tie us. So, on what basis can we consider ourselves to be independent? There is another example given that we normally say regulative principles of freedom. So, which means no meat eating, no intoxication, no gambling, no illicit sex. So, when we specify no regulative principles of freedom, that actually means that if we observe this regulative principle, then we become free. But if we don't want to observe, then we are bound in this material world by these four sinful activities. Um, One example is that when a plane flies, uh, the pilot actually he flies an aircraft through purely by instruments. He cannot see anything because the speed of the aircraft is many hundreds of kilometers. Some are 300, some are 600, some are 1,000, some are even 2,000 kilometers. So he cannot see anything visually. But what he does is that he has got so many instruments with him which guide him to fly. So purely he flies on the basis of these instruments. And there is no man-made this thing which is completely perfect. And that is the reason when many times, even if one of the instruments fail, there is no other option but the aircraft to crash. And in the process, so many people die. So, on what basis can we say that we have become independent? Whereas Shastras explain that people in Siddhaloka or heavenly planets, they don't require They have their own airplane, not like the material airplane that we see here. They can fly on their own from one planet to another. So this tendency to fly is there, but what happens is that we don't know what is right and what is wrong. Uh, Another example that is given here is that we are just like puppets in the hands of a puppeteer. So, whatever way the puppeteer wants us to dance, we dance. But on the other hand, what we are trying to do is that we are trying to lord over that puppeteer, on whom we have no control at all. Can we say that we want to dance like this only? But on the other hand, if a puppeteer makes us dance in the other way he wants, we cannot say no. But similarly, by trying to dance like the way Maya wants us to dance, we are trying to fight against Maya. That is what overcoming the obstacles created by Maya. That is what is called struggle for existence. So Dhruva Maharaj was considered himself actually very foolish by asking for material benediction, just like a poor man approaches a wealthy man who can give wealth, but he was asking for some broken grains. Uh, Whereas he should have asked for being engaged in devotional service, which is everyone's sorrow. And it is said that one must have three things which are very important to achieve success in Krishna consciousness. The three things are patience, enthusiasm, and determination. Dhruva Maharaj had this patience, had this enthusiasm, and he had the determination also. So, if we have to even seek spiritual benediction from the Lord, we must have these things, that is patience, enthusiasm, and determination. Sometimes it might take a lot of time also, it can take very many lifetimes also. So that is because we have conditioned ourselves to this extent. The more we are conditioned, the more we are dependent on Maya, and we have become independent of Krishna. And we should not think that in this material world, I will somehow or there try to enjoy this material life. Whereas our goal should be always to see that somehow I succeed my spiritual life. That is what Srila Prabhupada always mentions. Uh, we should try to develop love for Krishna by serving Krishna in the best possible way to one's capacity. It's not that everyone has got the same capacity, but the Lord has given capacity to everyone, either physically, mentally, spiritually, every way, which way the Lord has given opportunities to serve. So we should try and serve the Lord as much as possible in the best way possible so that the Lord becomes pleased. And if we are able to see the Lord in one lifetime, we can go back to Godhead. Otherwise, the way things are changing in the name of development of the country or nation or the world, there is no development. We have only increased our dependence on material opulence. If you ask any of the elders of the previous years, they never had any opulence like car or phone, etc. They all lived a very peaceful life. They were very, very happy. But the more we have accumulated material wealth or material opulence, we have increased our sufferings on a day-to-day basis. In fact, science itself says that addiction to mobile phones is injurious to health, but still people are dependent on it more. So the more we try to depend on Maya, the more dependence we will have, Maya will create for us so that we can be here only trying to enjoy all these. So whatever we see all over externally, all these material opulences are a form of illusion, and we must try to understand that they have nothing to do with devotion service. So with this, I conclude the class for the day. If anybody has got any questions or comments, they can ask me. Any questions? Any comments? Otherwise, I'll take the class as closed. Thank you all very much. Granthrat Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada.